oh my gosh, all kinds of spaces of beauty and joy. In 2013, I drove from Ithaca, New York, where I live, out to Glacier National Park in Montana. And so the Going to the Sun road that's in Glacier is beautiful in such a way that you just find yourself being like, this landscape, wow. And I have that a lot with nature. I have it a lot with trees, you know, where my friends joke around about how crossing a campus with me trying to have a conversation is hard because I'm always stopping and saying, look at that tree. One of the things that I do in my classroom in order to like kind of get students to think about that ineffable is to say to them, there's a large tree outside the classroom that I usually teach in, and I say, can you say that tree? And then they realize, oh no, poems are hard is the response, because you can't say that the tree, you know, which, you know, there's that Rilke quote from the I think it's from the Ninth Duino Elegy, where he says, perhaps we are here in order to say house, bridge, fountain, gate, fruit tree, pitcher, you know, and it's like that list of things that, like, that this is what our time on earth is for, you know, like, can you say fruit tree? Which is funny because I have a poem in my purse right now that I wanted to read tonight about the grapefruit tree that was in the back of my yard when I was a little girl, and it's like it's a tree that saved my life, I feel like, in a lot of ways. I used to go and climb up into the tree to have a safe space for moments in a childhood that was unsafe in a lot of ways, and trying to say that grapefruit tree has become this great project. And I haven't finished the poem, so I'm not going to be able to read it tonight. It makes me really sad, but it's that thing of like, how do you say the grapefruit tree was my first, that grapefruit tree was my first love, you know? And so how to get that into words in a way that makes sense to anybody who's not living in your head that's poetry to me. It is like falling down the rabbit hole every time, because I don't set out to intend to say, oh, I'm going to write these poems about this 19th century 18-year-old who's like experimenting in a lab trying to figure out a way to cure malaria by making a synthetic quinine, who comes across this pink trying to be purple and stuff. It's just, I'll be looking at one thing, you know, and suddenly things like that just start appearing, and then I have to follow them. I have to follow them. And then one builds on the next, on the next. And at this point, because it happened with the previous two books, I'm not as scared of it as I used to be, because now I start to think of it as like kind of the universe is leaving me breadcrumbs to follow. Like, oh, here's that, is connected to that, is connected to that. And part of the process of making a book for me is the places where the connections are not clear to me. How do I leap, you know, across those gaps? And so it's just something as simple as seeing a color that I think I'm going to write about because it's pretty, and then discovering this whole history of mauve that was underneath it. And then the more I dig, the more there is, at the point at which it became tied, you know, the unearthing that if you follow mauve out, you get to immunology and chemotherapy. Well, then I'm screwed, you know, because then I have to think about all of that. And then suddenly, because of the cancer connection, I'm looking at chromothripsis, and I'm looking at, you know, DNA, and then I'm looking at, from there, I start looking at cell circuits and who's doing work on cell circuitry and things like that. And I just love that stuff.